We are talking with New York-based filmmaker Gregorio Smith, founder of SmithKraft Productions. Gregorio is going to be debuting his newest film project March 27th, 2013 in Brooklyn, New York. It's entitled Truth Be Told. I'd like to share with you a description of the film from the film's website, hereliesthetruth.com. It says, Truth Be Told, a new feature-length documentary lifts the veil on the seemingly benign Jehovah's Witnesses religion to expose a profit-driven, isolationist culture characterized by fear, totalitarian corporate leadership, intellectual and spiritual intimidation, suspension of critical thinking, failed prophecies, doctrinal inconsistency, and improper handling of physical and sexual abuse allegations within the church. See former Jehovah's Witnesses candidly discuss growing up inside the religion. They reveal experiences including the effects of proselytizing door-to-door, shunning non-observant family and friends, suffering the discouragement of pursuing dreams like gaining a higher education, missing other societal holidays and customs, and more. Ultimately, the film reveals why Jehovah's Witnesses have the lowest retention rate of any religion, with only 37% of those raised as Jehovah's Witnesses continuing their affiliation with the religion. So that's just a quick rundown on the film. Gregorio, I'd really like to thank you so much for the chance to interview you and learn more about the film. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Maybe you could briefly describe your background for those unfamiliar with it. Do you know very much about Jehovah's Witnesses, and what is your association with them in the past?
Well, I do, to answer your question succinctly. I was born and raised in the religion. I was born in 1974, so that's the year when the society was really ramping up their preaching efforts in anticipation of the 1975 Armageddon prediction. So I guess my mom got caught into that when the Witnesses came a knocking. So all I've ever known as childhood and throughout adolescence was going to the Kingdom Hall and assemblies and going in field service.
Okay. But now you actually didn't get baptized, so you're not a disfellowship person. According to Watchtower definition, you're not mentally diseased. Is that so?
Yeah, it's interesting that term apostate. I remember being a kid going to a convention at Giant Stadium is where we had them back in New York in the early 80s. And actually, no, this one was at Yankee Stadium. But either way, at either location, they always had people picketing the conventions. I mean, we were walking to the car one day, and I saw these people, a sign that said, learn more about Jehovah's Witnesses, dial this number. And, you know, I'm a 7, 8-year-old kid. I'm like, hey, Mom, what's that about? And she grabs me and, like, averts our eyes collectively. She's like, no, don't look at them. They're apostates. And I'm like 7 years old. I'm like, apostate? Or whatever. But that word has been seared on my brain since then. So the organization, they call whoever turns against the religion or whoever critiques the religion an apostate. But I personally would reject that definition for two reasons. One, I was never baptized. So being in that religion was never my choice. So I have every right to question it and to criticize it.
Yeah, well, good for you. You know, it's funny you bring that up because when I was a little boy, only just a few years behind you, probably would have been early to mid-'70s, I would go to Dodger Stadium for conventions, and there'd be big, long rows of guys with signs, and my mother would avert my eyes and tell me not to look at them, and I never got much of a story from it either, other than that they were apostates. So that's interesting. The Yankee Stadium and Dodger Stadium, I think, are the biggest for those kinds of picketers. Now, if I can ask, the film's going to be debuting in New York soon. What is your distribution plan as far as getting it into theaters and other places? Those of us that are near Brooklyn are definitely going to want to come. And if, unfortunately, we're far away, how is that all going to work?
Well, that's exactly it. The challenge, I should say, that we're facing right now. It's a good challenge in the sense that I believe, and my business partners believe, and everyone who's involved in the production believes that it's an important movie. However, it's an independent production, and independent films are subject to the same exact market forces and trends as any other major motion picture. So we do plan to seek distribution, domestic, national, international, but it's going to take time. I mean, generally, the distribution of any movie takes about 2 to 3 years to fully explore and exploit all territories, and that includes theatrical, cable, television, network, and home video. So at this point, as we're still packaging the movie to sell it, we're having these one-off promotional screenings to create buzz for the movie.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it sounds like you're doing it the right. Sounds like you're doing it the right way, and you have to take it one step at a time. Then.
Sure. I mean, I guess it's something that we're just starting to identify a little bit of. And I don't want to say antipathy, but impatience on the part of some people out there, because I posted the first trailer for this movie during production about 2 years ago, and the initial wave of people that saw that said, wow, this looks really great, can't wait for it to come out. Well, okay. The average feature documentary takes about 2 years to produce, and I mean, I think we're right on the mark. However, there are voices out there that are expressing some discontent and even questioning the validity of the movie, because they've been hearing about it for the last 2-3 years. So I want to make it abundantly clear that I didn't start this project to tease the ex-witness community. I want this project to be seen in as many theaters as possible. I want it on Netflix. I want it on HBO. But these things take time. They take work. And most importantly, they take money and planning. So we're doing what we need to do to try to get it to as many screens and as many formats as possible.
Wow. Well, it's exciting. I'm excited, but yeah, I suppose people can get a little impatient, but it's coming, and the snowball is starting to roll down the hill, it sounds like. Now, let me ask you this. How long had you been toying with the idea of making a film about Jehovah's Witnesses, and was this a cathartic experience for you personally?
That's a great question, the second part in particular. Well, I started a production company 10 years ago. There's a sole proprietorship, and just about 4 years ago, my current business partner joined me, and we formalized it into an LLC. I give you that bit of history just for the fact that it wasn't even my idea to do this movie. For most of my 20s and my early 30s, I was still too bitter, too resentful, basically not in an objective place to do the movie that we produced. And it wasn't until my business partner came along and 2-3 years ago and suggested that I should make this my next project. So to answer the first question, it wasn't even my idea. It's my business partner. I never thought about it because I didn't want to revisit the hurt, revisit the pain. Now, second part, whether or not it was cathartic, I think that anyone that's involved in something creative, there's going to be a catharsis with finishing it. In fact, I mean, I think most creative types, they have a fetish for fruition, I like to call it, where nothing beats that release from getting something done. Mm-hmm. So it was cathartic in that sense, but not so much in the sense that, okay, well, I finally can unburden myself with this history, because I can't. I'm a filmmaker first and foremost, and people have been elevating me to the point of activist or therapist, and I can't escape it. So it's, as I said, creatively it was cathartic, but in terms of having to deal with watchtower minutia on a daily basis, not so much.
Yeah, that can get tiring. That can get old, I can imagine.
I get letters every single day of people telling me how the trailers and the excerpts of Alone have emboldened them to confront their parents or confront the elders, to handing their letter of disassociation, to tell their parents that they don't want to be a witness anymore, they're going to go to college and study martial arts. And I think that's great. It's pretty powerful to just wake up on any one random morning and receive a personal message like that. But as I said, as great as that is, I mean, yes, it gives me the incentive to, again, keep going and to, again, negotiate whatever distribution challenges. But frankly, it can be emotionally a bit much sometimes. So,
right.
So, but I knew that going into the project, so that's not a complaint. That's just the reality of the situation.
Sure, absolutely. And you know, when you're creating something and you're finally getting it done, it's kind of like almost like giving birth. You know, it is this release, and it is gratifying and satisfying. But yeah, you're going to have those birth pains as well. Now, the next thing I wanted to kind of cover with you is, what is your hope that the film will do for people? And I know, I would imagine you kind of felt like you had two audiences that you needed to kind of play to. You know, in Shakespearean times, you had to play to the lower class and the upper class. And now here you want to appeal to former witnesses, current witnesses, but also the general populace, I would think.
That's exactly it. Those are our three identified audiences. And I think the best way to reach all three was to take a very layered approach, meaning if you were to go onto YouTube or any video hosting site, you'll find hundreds, if not thousands, of ex-JWs giving their testimony of their JW experience, some of them more tragic than others. My thing, though, is that not one of these productions really gave any sort of historical understanding of what it was really like being in the Kingdom Hall, to really connote that feeling of being part of that hive mind in a windowless environment 3 times a week. So we wanted to take, as I said, a layered approach to give a historical understanding of what it was like growing up in the witness organization. We review some of the weekly meetings and policies and procedures. And then in the third act, we go after the culture, not the doctrine, because you can debate doctrine with any religion till you're blue in the face. When we talk about the deleterious effects of the witness culture itself. So by the third act, people, whether they were an ex-witness, active witness, or worldly person, in keeping with their vernacular, all three will be at an equal footing, ready to receive the third act that really gets into the substance or the main thrust of the movie, which is, again, criticizing the culture of the witnesses.
I really like the way that you're kind of framing that answer, because I've actually done that on my blog and in my videos before, mentioned the JW mindset or the JW culture, and sometimes I'll try to say to people that are really mad and they're angry at all the witnesses, and say, look, it's part of the way that their culture is. You know, most of them are sincere, but they're caught up in this mindset that they just cannot break out of, and you know, the average person doesn't know what it is. They just don't know.
Well, it's interesting. Just recently, I started reading this book just for leisure purposes. It's called The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. And it outlines basically a lesson plans for succeeding in business. And he talks about a phenomenon called the mastermind, which the short definition would be a mind which grows out of the blending and coordination of 2 or more minds in a spirit of perfect harmony. Now, he goes on to illustrate how that mastermind concept is used, and he references sales organizations like life insurance, where they'll meet once a week for the purpose of merging individual minds into a mastermind, which will, for a limited number of days, serve as a stimulus to the individual minds. So I read that, and immediately I thought about the meeting schedule growing up. 2 hours on Sunday, an hour Tuesday nights, 2 hours on Thursday, where each time it was basically just like a sales meeting, but in this case they were selling the doctrine, selling the culture, and again, exerting that mastermind or that hive mind influence over individual minds. So unlike other churches where you meet once a week, Rutherford decided that, okay, no, we're going to do this 3 times a week. I can only imagine to make that mastermind or that hive mind effect stick a little bit more. And incidentally, this book was written in 1928. That's the same exact year that Rutherford adopted the new service meeting schedule within the Kingdom Hall. So that could just be synchronicity, coincidence, or he very well could have read this chapter about mental chemistry and applied it to the Watchtower policies.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is fascinating. Fascinating to think of. So you interview a number of former witnesses then in the film. May I ask, were there any current Jehovah's Witnesses interviewed? Were they disguised or silhouetted, or did any active or inactive witnesses agree to be interviewed?
No. Well, they met for a pre-interview. I've mentioned that during pre-production, I put out a general call looking for witnesses of whatever standing, former, active, Bethelites, pioneers, whatever the case may be. And I said, the post said that we're looking to do a documentary, no obligations, we'll protect your privacy. And as I said, dozens of people responded, and about a third of those were active witnesses. The thing is, I met with these people and spoke with them for hours on end. I remember this one dude in particular. Turns out he was a Bethelite, former Bethelite, and also gay. And he talked to me for about 3-4 hours straight of just the things that he saw, the double lives that he knew about, and just the alienation that he's receiving from his family since he finally decided to be true to himself. And at the end of that conversation, I was like, wow, this is really fascinating. And, are you willing to be on camera? And I knew this was coming, and he declined. And he said, well, yeah, I just, sorry to waste your time, but I just really needed someone to talk to about this stuff. So he had no intention of being in the movie whatsoever, but he knew he had a receptive ear, which he did. And the thing is, that's exactly what happened with other active witnesses that were in it, that were pre-interviewed. They just needed someone to talk to. And even though I told them that I would be willing to silhouette their images and alter their voice, they were just too afraid of any potential blowback from the society and from their families.
And really, it's a pity, but isn't that itself a strong testimony to the grip that this organization has on members and even former members? It's just unbelievable to get your mind around.
Yeah, and one other point that I like to make is that there's a lot of active witnesses out there that they're cowards if they were to see me on the street and ask me a question directly about the movie or about the production or about my history. But they're really brave behind the keyboard. And they made comments on some of the YouTube videos or the trailers or excerpts suggesting that, oh, wow, well, this is clearly biased and prejudicial. And my thing is, well, I tried. I really tried. And, in fact, I contacted the Watchtower headquarters directly. They they have a public relations department. And almost 2 years ago, I spoke with a certain individual, told him everything that I was doing, and gave him my contact information, so they needed to verify some info, and they never got back to me. Then even when the movie was completed last summer, when we had a private screening in New York, I contacted them again and said that, hey, you might remember me. We spoke however long ago. Just want to tell you this movie's done, and I want to extend an invitation to governing body, powers that be over there. And they said almost verbatim that this is something that we're not interested in, and then they hung up. So they had a chance to...
Yeah, you didn't get to talk to J.R. Brown, huh? You didn't come to your screening?
No, I did not. I remember my business partner, I told him, was like, hey, I mean, should I try to write them a letter, or should I try to visit them directly just so I can get some sort of statement? And my business partner goes, no, that was their statement. Screw them. You know, they had an opportunity to make a statement, and now, I mean, they can make their own documentary as an answer to this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, and look, at least you can say you legitimately, you genuinely tried, and they declined to participate or to give you any kind of response. So that's really all you could do, I would think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how we framed it, with a bit more colorful language.
Yeah. So do you still have any relatives or friends that are active witnesses that you see or talk to at all?
Friends, not so much. My mother is still an active witness. That relationship has been strained for some time now. And in fairness, not all of it is attributable to the organization, the culture, or the doctrine, but it's definitely compounded by it. And I have an aunt who, for all intents and purposes, is like a super J-dub. She's been a witness for maybe 60 years, and I have a strong feeling that once she gets wind of this, that I probably won't be speaking to her anymore. Not my choice, but that's how far in she is mentally with it.
Right. Well, that's a pity, but you've got to do what you've got to do, and hopefully they'll be able to, you'll be able to make a bridge there or something, but you just never know. Now,
it's true. I mean, in fairness, it's one thing I want to say is that one of the interview subjects mentions in the movie that he, as much as he disagrees with the witness culture, he understands why his mother became a witness. Meaning, let's say, like for me, I was born in the 70s, and New York was a sewer back then. I mean, the whole thing was a toilet. So, like, if you ever saw Death Wish with Charles Bronson, I mean, that was pretty accurate in terms of what New York was like. So if you have a newborn at home and someone knocks on your door and presents this alternative, to the wholesale misery that was inflicted upon society, it's pretty attractive. And for a lot of people, women in particular, mothers, it was, this world is going to hell in a handbasket, and I want something better for my children. So, granted, as I said, it's hard for me to forgive, to be honest. Like, just a lot of the messed up things that happened in childhood, just in terms of, obviously, college being discouraged, no friends, no after-school activities, things like that. But at the same time, is that misery is tempered by a little bit of understanding. And that's, again, something that I try to communicate in the movie, which is we are not attacking the organization. We are absolutely very critical, but I don't want to be guilty of telling people what to think, because then I'd be just as bad as the organization itself. Will people come away with an opinion that's favorable of the organization? Probably not, but that's at their own volition.
Well, that's fair enough. I'd like to shift just a little bit, because one of the things about JWStruggle, my blog, my YouTube channel, is a lot of the ones that have kind of connected with me and I have connected with them are brothers and sisters that have tried to retain a love of God, of the Bible, of some kind of spirituality. And I know they're going to want me to ask this. They're going to want to know, are you now some kind of God hater or religion hater? Are you frothing at the mouth? Are you an iconoclast? Or if I can ask you a semi-personal question, Gregorio, what are your personal religious views now?
Yeah, I thought I might get this question. The way I take a very academic look at religion. I mean, if we look at the word itself, religion, it's from a Latin word, religare, which means binding. If you ever played like a woodwind instrument, like I played saxophone, you have a ligature, and it comes from the same word. Point is, religion as we understand it today is any system of beliefs that you bind yourselves to, but it doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual. It doesn't have to be parochial, meaning belong to any particular church or denomination. In my religion, as an artist, as a person, I believe in being moral, working hard, and not making excuses. Now, in terms of, do I believe that there's any sort of grand design? Is there a creator? I can't answer that. But I have the freedom to, pursue that line of inquiry in whatever manner I see fit. So that's where I stand on religion these days.
Well, fair enough. And it's sad that so many people have left the movement and they've just gone so far to the other side and become, haters of anyone that has faith or anything like that. So
sure, but
yeah,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's completely understandable because, I mean, that's just a manifestation of the hurt of being under the thrall of the witnesses or, overly zealous parent for however many decades. And, for myself, I mean, the anger doesn't go away. I have triggers almost every single day that makes me look back at my childhood with nothing but regret. So, yeah, that's a manifestation more than anything of the hurt, but also, I guess, for some, it's a sense of taking the power back, where I have the presence of mind to believe this, and this is what I choose to believe, and I'm going to defend this as vigorously as you defend your spiritual views. And one other thing that I'd like to point out is that a lot of people use the word cult when it comes to the witnesses. Now, again, opinions will vary, and I respect people's opinions. The thing is, when it comes to the word cult, that word doesn't appear inside the movie once. It's not in the movie. It's not in any of the excerpts or the website or the Facebook page through the Truth Be Told administrators. I say that because cult, the word itself, it's not exactly value neutral. It's somewhat stigmatized. Now, again, people make the argument that the witnesses deserve to be stigmatized. Okay, that's another conversation. Point is that there are a lot of witnesses, active witnesses, that they're right on the fence. Like, they want to leave their organization. They want to think independently and critically for the first time. Thing is, when they start doing their independent research and they run into people, these the more aggressive and abrasive atheists or apostates that are out there, that scares the hell out of them and discourages them from doing exactly what they should be doing, which is, again, pursuing the truth or questioning witness doctrine. So I guess that's goes to your point about the people that are so far in the extreme. Is that, again, I understand that they're communicating that hurt. They're also doing a lot of people a disservice at the same time.
Well, I think that's an astute observation because, you've got that anger, and then using inflammatory words can just make it worse and hurt the cause to help, witnesses that are awakening to the truth about the truth, as many of us call it. It just scares them away, and that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Well, hey, I noticed on the website on HereLiesTheTruth.com you had a picture of yourself with Candice Bergen. She's been in the news quite a bit. You had a private screening with her. What was that like?
That was interesting. That was the private screening that we had in New York last July. I think it was the first cut of the movie. There's been a couple of revisions since. And that screening, more than anything, was almost to validate the existence of the movie, because I mentioned before about the growing impatience and people questioning whether or not the movie really existed. So I decided to go ahead and have a private invitation-only screening. And a friend of mine's mom suggested that I reach out to Candice Bergen to see if she'd like to attend. Now, she's in your neck of the woods, or at least your coast. She's in California, Northern California. And I called her lawyer, Rick Simons, left a message. I remember vividly. I hit the gym, and as I'm leaving that night, I got a message from Mr. Simons telling me that if it was okay with me, that he was going to fly Candice out to New York to attend the screening. So she came to New York. I was basically her guide and handler for the time that she was here. Showed around the city, took her to the screening, and initially, because of all the press, she didn't want to talk to the audience, but by the end of the screening, she absolutely had to talk to the audience, she told me. So she's a supporter of the movie. She was affected by it, and that picture was just taken right after she spoke to the audience. Since we're good friends now.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I'm smiling ear from ear to right now. You can't see me. We're talking on the phone. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are watching this and listening to this interview, and they're going to be smiling right now because it's just so cool to be able to see that, to see people be moved, to see. I mean, I imagine there's going to be many of us that are going to have emotional reactions to this film when we see it, and that it's going to tap into that hurt and that pain. And most of us, of course, have never endured anything like Miss Conti has, but we share her feelings, through the story and through our shared experiences with the witnesses.
Exactly, and I think that's, at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of time, a lot of money went into this, and I also want to make clear, I mean, SmithKraft Productions, it's a capitalist venture. It's not enough for profit, So as such, I have business partner and other people who have interests that I have to attend to, and this is why we're doing what we need to do to explore and find as many distribution channels as we can.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because one of the things I wanted to make sure I asked you is when can we get it on DVD? When can we? And I know you may not be able to give it that date on the calendar, but that is something that we are going to be. Many of us are going to be lining up to purchase this when it comes out on disc.
The goal is limited theatrical distribution by summer, fall, and hopefully on DVD by this fall. DVD and video on demand by the fall.
Okay. So that's definitely something we can mark on our calendars and trying to get, maybe if there's a West Coast screening, maybe if there's some Midwest places, I don't know what locations that you're going to be able to line up, but this is exciting. We're going to be watching this. I know there's a lot of folks that follow my channel and my site that are going to be wanting to get on board, and you're really tapping into, into a great story and a great set of stories, it sounds like.
Well, and everyone can help as well, in the sense that when we've created a community, basically, based on this movie. So people have sent us via our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Here Lies the Truth, or to the website, HereLiesTheTruth.com. People are submitting suggestions for film festivals or screening venues, places that specialize in independent fare such as this, or religious themed fare. And also, I mean, there's been people who work in the industry that offer suggestions in terms of resources, in terms of screening facilities. So I would encourage anyone out there, if you have access to any resource that can accelerate the distribution of the movie, drop us a line. We will get back to you.
Mm-hmm. That is a great idea. And there's all these Christian video distribution channels now, the Passion of the Christ type of crowd of people. There's a number of large churches, especially non-denominational churches, that have outreaches for recovering former Jehovah's Witnesses or other cult-like groups. Sorry, I used that word. That's the only thing I can think of.
No, apologize to me.
Yeah, there are a lot of outreach type ministries that that cater to these folks, and many that leave Jehovah's Witnesses continue on as Christians and attend these churches. So, yeah, I would definitely be interested in trying to find ways to get it played in those kinds of venues, large churches and mega churches that have organized drives for Christian videos and religious videos. I wonder if it would appeal to them. But liking you folks on Facebook and getting the word out, I think is one of the best things that all of us can do right off the bat. It sounds like.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gregorio, I'm just thrilled to be able to talk to you and have this interview with you, and you've been so forthright and really just illuminated the whole subject for me. And I really appreciate the interview and continued success, and we're going to be watching how this all unfolds in the next several months.
I'll keep you posted. Thanks for having me.
The order is rapidly fading, for the time